What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out. I want to give a big shout out to RM Jr. 1998 with the $15 donation via the Cash App. Alright, much respect to him for showing love to this channel. And I saw your video request. I was going to talk about her anyway, but yeah, I'm going to get in on J-Lo with the bullshit that she's trying to pull with Wesley Snipes. You know what I'm saying? If you're not aware of that, you know what I'm saying, you might want to look into that. You know what I'm saying? She's the last person you're trying to pull that crap. So I'm going to go in on her on the Patreon. Much respect, man. Much respect to RM Jr. 1998 showing love to his channel. To anybody that want to show love to his channel, you can do so in the links in the description box below via the PayPal or the Cash App or in the pinned comment in the comment section below. Now, I want to continue on with this top 10 NBA backcourt duos list. So at number 9, I have Jerry West and Gail Goodrich of Los Angeles Lakers, and they played together for most of the 1960s and from 1970 to 74. Um, in some ways, they were similar and an earlier version of the Splash Brothers. Okay, they were the best backcourt shooting tandem, especially in the 1970s, the early part of the 1970s. Now, initially, uh, they weren't on equal footing. All right. Initially, when Gail Goodrich was drafted out of UCLA in 1965, it was, of course, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor's team. As a matter of fact, at that time, Jerry West was establishing himself as the primary first option over Elgin Baylor after Elgin Baylor suffered that significant knee injury. I think it was during the 1965 playoffs, but this is the year after the season following. So Jerry West was starting to emerge as the number one scorer. Matter of fact, I think it was the year before that Jerry West set that record for the highest scoring average in a series at 46.5 points a game. Now, initially, Gail Goodrich shared minutes. He had limited minutes. He shared minutes with Archie Clark and Walt Hazzard from 1965 to 1968. So, like I said, it wasn't equal footing. It was he was sharing minutes of the shooting guard position with those guys, while Jerry West was playing point guard. Even though I still, for life of me, I still think of Jerry West as a shooting guard. I just do. But in 1968, the Lakers lost Gail Goodrich in the expansion draft to the new Phoenix Suns. But it was in Phoenix that he was reinventing himself as a star. From 1968 to 1970, Gail Goodrich averaged over 20 points per game. Now, he came back to the Lakers in 1970, but things were different by this time. By this time, Elgin Baylor's career was winding down. Jerry West, after leading the league scoring at 31.2 points per game, 1969-70 season, he needed help. All right, he needed help because just him shooting the basketball 25 times a night wasn't going to get it done. So Jerry West was now being moved to play more of a traditional point guard role, more of a facilitator. He still was going to score, but not shoot the basketball as much. So Gail Goodrich, who was familiar with the Lakers organization, familiar with the system, he came back, but this time they were more in an equal partnership. And this culminated in a championship in 1972, where Gail Goodrich actually led all scorers with at least the lead scorer for the Lakers. I don't know if he led all scorers, but I believe he led all scorers. I know he led all the scorers for the Lakers. Even though Wilt Chamberlain won Finals MVP. Now, Jerry West would ultimately retire in 1974. Goodrich would go on to play until 1978. He would later play with the New Orleans Jazz, and I believe one other team, but I can't remember who. But in 687 games with the Lakers, Gail Goodrich averaged 19 points a game to go along with 3 rebounds and 4.2 assists per game. While Jerry West in 932 games with the Lakers averaged 27 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 6.7 assists. But this is how it was different during the second tenure. During the second tenure, from 70 to 76 with the Lakers, Gail Goodrich averaged 22.5 points, 3.2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.5 steals, while Jerry West averaged 24.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, 9 assists per game, and 2.6 steals per game. And in the playoffs for the Lakers, Gail Goodrich averaged 17.9 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists, while Jerry West averaged 29.1 points, one of the highest scoring averages in playoff history, 5.6 rebounds, and 6.3 assists. But when Gail Goodrich came back with the Lakers in 1970, the numbers were a little bit closer. Goodrich averaged 22.4 points per game in the playoffs, along with 3.1 rebounds, 4.9 assists, while Jerry West averaged 25.7 points, 4.3 rebounds, 8.2 assists per game. So they were such a dynamic duo. Why do I have them a little bit lower? Well, because they had a lot of losses. Okay, as great as this tandem was initially, um, in the '60s, before 1968, they didn't really have a great center. I've mentioned that before, and that was a big weak spot when they were going up against the Celtics. And the Celtics always took advantage of that. They were very aggressive with Bill Russell offensively to go along with the great all-around team they already had, and the Celtics just could never beat the Lakers. You know? I mean, excuse me, the Lakers could never beat the Celtics. Um, in 1968 to 69, those Laker teams were without the services of Gail Goodrich. When you think about it, if they had the services of Gail Goodrich, maybe it would have been different. You know, it probably would have been different. But by the time Gail Goodrich came back, Wilt was getting older. Elgin Baylor was pretty much finished. Jerry West was on the downside of his career. And you wonder what could have been had that team been put together earlier, that Laker team in the '70s. So the combination of Gail Goodrich and Jerry West went 1-3 in the NBA Finals. So that hurts them. So I have to put them down a little bit lower. But still, they're one of the great backcourt tandems, one of the great scoring backcourts in the history of the league. They were at their primes. You know, either one of them could drop 30 to 40 points on you in a drop of the hat. Actually, Jerry West could actually drop 40 to 60 points on you. But by that time, I'll drop it down 30 to 40 by the 1970s. So yeah, they both combined to give you about 50 points a game, and both were great facilitators, great outside shooters, great mid-range shooters. Uh, you know, and combine that with the guys, you know, guys like Happy Harrison and Will Chamberlain dominating the boards. That's what made them such a great team. And but at number 9 on my list, I have the backcourt of Jerry West and Gail Goodrich. And tell me what you guys think.